Alright, so tonight's video is interpreting remainders. Last night we started with some division, and now we're going to have to figure out what happens when we use multiplication and it doesn't come out evenly. So we're now dividing things that don't have a basic fact. We have to focus on equal groups and leftovers. So we'll do our best to use the basic fact, but there's going to be some leftovers. We call those leftovers remainders. The question we're going to ask ourselves is, what do I do with those remainders? That's called interpreting the remainder. You find a remainder, and you got to figure out in the word problem, what is it I have to do with that remainder? So, for example, if you have 5 cookies to share with 2 friends, sharing means you're going to be dividing, first of all, and you've got 5 cookies to share with 2 friends. Now, you know that 5 is odd and that 2 is even, and so that's not going to work out well. There's going to be some remainders. How many cookies do you give to each friend? Remember, we're sharing equally. What would you do with the leftovers? Take a moment to think about that. How many cookies could you give to each friend? And then what would you do with the leftovers? You should be thinking 5 divided by 2 equals something. Is 2 times anything 5? No. There's no basic fact that works with. So here are our circles that we used to use in 3rd grade. Actually, we've been using these since 1st grade. If I had these 5 cookies and I have 2 friends, okay, here's my friends. Each friend gets 2 cookies, and that one right there is the leftover. I'm going to eat it. Okay, so there are several ways to use a remainder. Sometimes, depending on what the question asks, we will only be looking at the remainder to be the answer. So they may ask things like, what is left? Sometimes we ignore the remainder, and that might be a question that doesn't make any use of the remainder at all. Sometimes we have to add 1 to the remainder. That means we're going to round the quotient, or the answer that we get, up by 1 because we have a remainder. We need to round it up to the next whole number. And then we have the share remainder, which is where we ask, the question has like precise measurements. It needs to know exactly how much each person gets. And that would be represented as a fraction or a decimal, which we will get to later on. And then other times they will say, if you want to know what the missing amount is. So how many more do I need would be that missing amount. So let's say, for example, if there were 63 students going to St. Augustine, each car holds 5 students. How many cars do we need? Now, I know my basic facts, and I know that 5 times nothing is going to give me 63, because 5 can't go into 63. 63 doesn't end with a 5 or a 0, so it's not divisible by 5. So I've gone ahead and made a model, and the equation is 63 divided by 5 equals 12 with a remainder of 3. So I have my circles, 5 students in each car, and it took me, I knew that 5 times 6 is 30, so I have 6 cars so far, with 5 students in each. I did that again because 30 plus 30 would make 60, and I have 63. So I know that I'm going to have 3 kids left over. I go back and I look, okay, great, I've got this answer, but now I have to go back and look at what the question is. How many cars do we need? Well, I know I need 12 cars to get 60 students to St. Augustine, but what about those 3 kids that were left over? Don't they get to go? This is one of those questions where you have to round up. You have to add 1 to your quotient in order to get everybody there. So instead of leaving it at 12 remainder 3, we really need 13 cars to get everybody there. This car is not going to be full, though. What if I want to share 63 paper clips equally among 5 kids? What is the greatest amount each kid can get? Well, I already figured out 63 divided by 5 on our last problem. I know the answer is 12 remainder 3. My question is, what is the greatest amount that each kid can get? In this case, we have to focus on our whole number quotient, and that would be the 12. The most that each kid can get is 12. These 3 remainder paper clips, I can't give them to only some of the kids. That wouldn't be fair, wouldn't be equally, and it says we have to divide them equally. So in this case, our focus is going to be just on the quotient, and we are going to ignore the remainder. On this problem, it says if I share the paper clips, how many do I have left? Same problem, same numbers we're dealing with. How many do I have left? This focuses on our remainders. How many do we have left? How many left? Well, the remainders mean that they're leftovers, so that's what you're focusing on. In this case, they want the remainder as the answer. All right, on this one, same numbers again. 63 kids go on a trip. Each car holds 5 kids. How many students can go if we only have full cars? Which number in the answer is talking about the full cars? That would be the whole number quotient. All right, so oftentimes the questions will ask you to interpret that remainder. That means you have to figure out which part of the answer you get is what they're looking for. So make sure you have this in your notebook, even if you only get the highlighted parts. Don't forget to take your quiz, and I will see you in the morning.